What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing you another video today. I am back from Madrid, Spain. Atlanta FaZe were your Major 1 champions. We're going to get into my thoughts on them in a second, but you know what it is. It's time for the post-event tier list. We're expecting a lot of news this week and next about some roster changes, but I wanted to, prior to all of the roster mania stuff and the map pool discussion and maybe some GAs coming out, I want to do my tier list, so let's get into it. We're going to rank all 12 teams after the exciting event in Spain. All right, so this is my tier list from before the event. Wow, a lot of stuff has changed from this tier list. If you are new here, I don't do the letter thing. I do it this way. We might mess with some of the categories for this video, but we're gonna top your event winners. Teams I think that are gonna win the event. Very straightforward. Usually top 3, top 4. We kind of split it after the first week of the online or the last week of the online qualifiers. When I thought OpTic and FaZe are the two best teams, clearly I was wrong about that. Sunday regulars are gonna be your other teams that I expect to be top 4. Probably not too big of a change here, but love to talk about Miami. I don't know what I'm gonna do with them. Fighting for Sundays, teams I think that are on the bubble. I got pretty close here on that one. Vancouver, I don't know. That's my I don't know category. They usually have one big flaw, and I think for Vancouver, I was on point with that. The missing pieces are all the teams that I think need a roster change, and there's one in particular here that I think I was maybe wrong about or maybe still right about. I don't know. All right, we're gonna start with the Vegas Legion, and yeah. I mean, they're still last, bro. Like, there's not really much to say about this one. These guys can't win. They can't win hard points. They're just so far behind developmentally. Well, the region's behind in general, but as a team, they're behind as well. And yeah, they got 3-0 by Carolina. I don't know what else you want me to say. I mean, upcoming matches, Boston and Thieves, first weekend. Then Cloud9, Minnesota. Don't really see a win there. Toronto, LAG, Carolina. Don't know what's going to happen with the roster. Don't know if Kicks is going to ever come back. Not sure what's going on with this team. But, you know, we'll see where they're at by the end of this stage. But I'm not expecting the world's best from them. And we'll put them in missing pieces because I don't really know where else to put them. Well, I don't know where else to put them. All right, Cloud9. Actually, do I want to put anybody? I'm going to move Vancouver probably here. I just don't know how to rank a couple of these teams. I think Vancouver for me, you know, with the loss to Toronto, where they got 3-0 smoked, and then to Minnesota, where they lost in a game 4. And, you know, the only map they won was the first map, the Hostage, which is a classic 3-1 loss we've seen too many times out of the search. I just don't know how they can keep this charade up of the fact that their team just can't slay. You know, 0-4 is probably their best player right now, and he's super consistent. And Booza had a terrible stage. And, you know, Nasty's just kind of an average player. And I like Hicksy. I think Charlie makes good plays. He just doesn't get kills. And I think they got to make a roster change. They're the masters of none. There's not really a standout game mode for them. Couldn't there really be a crutch on? Like, their control's not that good. Their SD's not that good. Their hardpoint's not that good. They're just not that good. And you look at their schedule coming up for this split. FaZe and Cloud9 the first week. Then they got LAG. Then the minor qualifier, Thieves, Miami, Toronto, Minnesota. Like, these guys are a losers bracket right now unless they make a change. So I'm putting them at the bottom, and I'm expecting some news about some team changes here. And if not, I will be mind blown. All right, next up in this category of teams, I'll probably do LAG before I do Cloud9. They're sort of similar sort of boats of teams that I think are kind of on the cusp of a roster change. The LAG one's a little bit tough because I felt like they battled pretty hard in the series against OpTic, but I think fundamentally this team is broken. Fundamentally, they just cannot just get over the hump in these game 5s. They're just, you know, I thought they caught OpTic in a series they didn't look good, and they won 2 hard points, which I would have never expected LAG to do against OpTic. But they couldn't beat OpTic in S&D. The last map wasn't particularly close on Vault. And the control, they got smoked on Hosty. I just don't know how you look at this LAG team right now. And think they should stick. And I hate to say it, but I think the weakest link on their team is Caesar Skies. I think Priest has actually played pretty good the last few weeks. He stepped it up, but I think Caesar is too slow. And I think it's not working, and I really think that they got to switch up. So they might be in the market for a new main AR, but knowing these guys, they probably won't change, and will be upset about it. But yeah, they are on pressure watch now because I expect them to come to the event and at least try and get top 6. They could not. Their upcoming schedule is interesting. They have only one match the first week back, Boston. Theoretically doable. Miami and Vancouver, also doable. Cloud9 and Vegas, doable. And then FaZe and OpTic. Like, there is a world where online this team could and should win their 5 first matches. Probably not, but they have a real chance for those 5. So maybe they might stick because they think the schedule's soft, but these guys got to get it going. That's an easy stage. And like the other stages they have are maybe, you know, like the third stage, for example, Carolina, Vancouver, Boston, Thieves, Toronto. Like, yeah, These guys are in a little bit of pressure, and they got to figure out how to close out a series because they're getting to game 5, and then, yeah, they're de-icing. Man, I'm tired of talking about this team, but Cloud9 New York, bro. Top 8. So, okay, not the world's worst, but it's not good enough considering they only had 1 win prior to that match. And then they had 1 win at the minor tournament, but then they lost. So they didn't get any points. They're sitting on 20 points. And I think their problem is just the same problem it's always been. And it's been the entire stage. One of their main ARs has to go. Either Dante's got to go or Itachi's got to go. And I don't know how else to really put it. Their 2 subs are solid. You know, I think Mac has fallen off a little bit from that first week, but he's still serviceable enough that this team, I think, is like, and should be doing better than they're doing right now. And I think that comes down to just a mismatch at the main AR spot. And I think they need someone that's gonna be more comfortable pulling out a 3rd sub because we're in a pretty 3-sub meta right now. So as good as they looked against Boston, knocking Boston out last, and we'll get to them. I don't know what to think about them. They couldn't get over the Minnesota hump, and they want to control, but they let Gio and Estriel just dunk on them for 3 of the 4 maps. So I don't know, bro. I think they need a roster change. Might they not make a roster change because they're delusional, potentially? It seems like that might be a running theme this week. We'll see if it holds or these teams actually do make changes. And the problem for C9 is, I'm going to read to you their schedule. It's not easy. Toronto and Vancouver first week. So Toronto, who are probably pissed off coming back, going to dunk on these guys. And then Vancouver, that's a must win. Vegas, winnable. Boston, winnable. LAG, Carolina, FaZe. So, like, I wouldn't say it's impossible schedule, but how many of these wins do you really give C9 their current form right now? Maybe 2? I don't know, bro. I think they need a roster change, but I won't be surprised if they don't do one just because, again, delusional. All right, I got to move Miami up a couple of tiers here. We're going to move them into this tier. I'm going to move Boston down here. We'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to move Miami into the Fighting for Sundays tier. Look, I know they got top 3 at this event, so, like, you know, don't come after me for thinking that they're too low. I kind of feel like, you know, this is the biggest event of the season for these guys because they're playing at home. I don't know if they ever, you know, imagined that they'd be playing a pro level event in their own home country. And these guys beat OpTic. I got to tip that. They beat OpTic the first day, lost at Thieves, went down to losers bracket, beat Minnesota, beat Carolina, and then lost at Thieves again. So the only team they lost to was in, you know, the grand finals. I might potentially at a future time here move Miami up, but for now I feel like I still want to see a little bit more from them before I feel confident that they are a somewhat top 4 team, because I watch every map they play and it looks like they're going to lose. They just feel very momentum based, and their X factor is still medals. But Real and Rancor had solid stages. I think Real probably better than Rancor, but I really think this team, in my mind, if it was up to me, I think Metals is solid, but I really think putting Rancor in a sub and bringing Super in might be the best version of this team. So we'll see if they eventually do that. But overall, I'm still a little bit concerned about their S&D. But the respawn was good enough this weekend that they were able to beat a bunch of teams. But their stage is not easy. And then the stage after that is even harder in my mind. This stage, they have Minnesota first week, only 1 match. Then they got LAG and FaZe. Okay. OpTic in Vancouver. And then Carolina, Boston. So there's a world where they go 4-3, 3-4 there. It's a good mix. And they got to get going because their 3rd qualifier is Vegas, OpTic, FaZe, Toronto, Minnesota, which I think is really hard. So Miami lives in Dallas now, so not a big travel for this upcoming Major 2. And this will be a big stage for them because this is the best placing ever for these guys and for the organization in COD. Can they follow this up with another good event, or are they just going to kind of fall in this to a top 6, top 8 trap all year? We shall see. But I'm moving them out of roster change territory. Even though I think they should make a roster change, I don't think they're going to. All right, let's talk Minnesota before we talk about Boston, because I'm moving them just like Boston to this I don't know tier because I just don't know, bro. I don't, maybe this is what their level is, right? Because, you know, they had to start in losers bracket. They beat Vancouver, okay. They beat Cloud9, okay. They lose to Miami, who got 3rd. I feel like this Minnesota team is good enough to beat a lot of these bottom 4, bottom 6 teams. But the problem is they just cannot get over the hump of beating a better team. They did beat Toronto during that minor online tournament. That is still their best victory so far. But the teams that they have beaten this season are Boston, LAG, the Toronto one, LAG again, Vancouver, and Cloud9. They've lost to FaZe. They've also lost to Toronto this season. They've lost to Thieves. So I think they're good as far as like, I think they're a tough out. I think their hard point is still not that good, although it's gotten better from where it was a couple weeks ago. They still have this problem where it's like they are very good at full hard point and they are kind of not so good at the other maps. And I think once you play them on those, the map pool really weakens. It's the same thing with search. Like they're very good Hossie team, maybe the best Hossie search team right now, 4-0, and a 4-1 on vault, but the other maps they do not have a winning record. So they got like a very tiny specific map pool that they've got to navigate. So I think they're good. I don't think they're going to make a change, although I think Paul is maybe an upgrade path there. In their upcoming schedule, this split it's tough, man. They're going to have to beat some good teams to make winners bracket. Miami and OpTic first weekend. Already like OpTic revenge. Miami just got top 3. Carolina, they just got 4th. Vegas free dub. That's the second weekend. Minor tournament. And then Atlanta phase that first week. Thieves in Vancouver. Like, I think they might be a losers bracket team this split. So that's why I'm putting them in I don't know, because the word kind of says it for you. The phrase kind of says it for you. Now let's talk about Boston Breach. There's another team that I don't think is that bad, but they got last to this tournament. Part of me wants to put them in missing pieces because I feel like this team doesn't have enough slaying. And Cloud9 did beat them in a game 5. So I'm just conflicted on what I want to do here. I am going to move them to missing pieces. And I feel bad about this because I actually think they're better in top 12, but I think Cammy had kind of a big fall off the last couple of weeks. I think Wake is still not played that well, but Snoopy's really good and somehow Purge is their second best player. The control is really hurting them in these series, being 3-7. But their S&D just isn't that good either. I mean, take a look at the stats. It's not bad, but, you know, first blood percentage, they're sort of in the middle of the road. And you kind of scroll through here, you see that, you know, it kind of persists in both offense and on defense. But you can see evidently kind of a little bit of their problem. This is just not a good defensive team in this retake situation. So they're last in the league. So that's something they got to improve in S&D, because only retaking 10 times in 36s. That's not going to win you matches. So something they got to improve. I think they should make a roster change. I don't know if they'll make a roster change. In their upcoming schedule for this next split, Vegas and LAG first weekend, Toronto and Cloud9. Okay, I mean, I would say that very winnable. Minor tournament, then Thieves and FaZe in the same week. Again, Boston gets screwed with this like 1 week out of the split where they played 2 top 3 teams, and then Miami Heretics. So they got to play the top 3 from the last event. I think they're going to make winners bracket, but I also think they should make a roster change. So we'll see what they do. All right, so we talked about Miami, talked about Minnesota. Let's now start to get again to the top half of teams. We're going to talk a little bit about the Carolina Royal Ravens. I think for me, I'm going to leave them in fighting for Sundays because I'm also going to move another team down here as well. I thought for Carolina, this was a good weekend. I think getting 4th is, you know, sort of, you know, it's a little unlucky. I think if the event wasn't in Miami, I think they probably get 3rd this event and lose to Thieves. But, you know, they lose to Thieves off the rip. Okay, tough draw. They make a really good losers bracket run. Smash Vegas, smash OpTic, beat Toronto in game 5. And then lose to Miami in that 4th game where their hard point just looked kind of off in that series and kind of ran into gas. But I think overall, like, you cannot be mad with the showing from Carolina this split. I think all 4 guys have really contributed. I think Reese Vivid's probably the weakest player, but he's playing out of position. So you could see a world where Carolina decides to make a roster change this week. Probably not, but I could see it happening. But stay the path for Carolina, and you're going to be a tough out all season. Their upcoming schedule, though, the first week, Thieves and Toronto, tough. Minnesota and OpTic second week, also tough. Minor tournament, Cloud9, Miami, Vegas. So I think they'll make winners bracket, but it's going to be a little bit of a battle this stage with what you see there. All right, I'm going to shuffle this a little bit. We're going to move Toronto down here. We're going to move Thieves up here. We're going to move OpTic over here. Toronto Ultra, I'm sliding them down quite a bit here. You know, I said in the last tier video, I've said in some podcasts, I wasn't sure about Toronto coming in this event because they had such a soft schedule. They didn't play that good against OpTic before they left. I just wasn't sure what version of Toronto we were going to get. And unfortunately for them, they just lack consistency this weekend. They beat Vancouver, fair, but back-to-back losses to FaZe and to Carolina meant that this Toronto team, unfortunately, only got top 6 of this event, which I think is a supreme disappointment from the level they should be at. I think it's clear that this team is good, but the limitation for me, if we go over here to the stats, I'm going to kind of show you. You know, this Toronto team is really good at protocol, 10-4. But when you scroll down here, you notice when they have played good protocol teams, Atlanta FaZe 0-2, Carolina Royal Ravens 0-1. They're either losing to these teams on protocol or not able to play them in that map pool because they're trying to respect the strength that those teams have. And then you start to play these teams on other maps. Toronto, great skyline team, but you see here in the hardpoint, because they don't play red card, the map pool is tiny. You see in S&D, because they don't play skyline, search just hasn't got played in series, map pool pretty tiny. Their control is good. I don't really have a lot of criticisms about their control, but the map pool, the consistency has to be worked on because this team should be better. So I don't expect Toronto to make a roster change, but they're not playing good enough that I'm anointing them amongst the FaZe, Thieves, sort of OpTic full combination. Fun schedule for them this split. I think we'll see them play much better opposition this split. 5-9 in Carolina first weekend, Boston and Thieves second weekend to break, Vegas and OpTic that fourth weekend, and then Vancouver Surge. Should make winners bracket with that schedule, but they got to show up against OpTic, Thieves, Carolina to have me really confident about them going into Dallas. But it's possible these guys are just in the top 6, top 8 jumble with the 3 teams in this category. I'm gonna rename the category and let's start talking about OpTic here. They're kind of in their own category. I'm giving them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt for this last event. Like if we were actually keeping it a buck, you know, if I was actually kind of doing this based on event placings, I would have put them way lower in this because they somehow pulled up to an event where they were looking like one of the event winners and had another stinky. This happens too often with OpTic compared to your phases, your Thieves of the world. For whatever reason, and actually, I have kind of a thought, and I've talked about it on stream about why I think so. These guys are incapable of having a high floor. It is low floor, high ceiling for them, and this is an event where they got top 8, which should never happen. This team is too talented to lose Carolina and Miami at the same event. And by the way, almost lost LAG. They clutched up game 5, but that one should not have gone the distance either. You lost 2 hard points to LAG. I mean, these guys pulled up, and when I saw them in person and seeing them play matches, it looked like they didn't want to be there. It's so odd to me. This is a group that lacks just discipline. They lack discipline in teamwork when you watch them play hardpoint. When it's not going that way, when the timings are not hitting, these guys look awful in the game mode. They're search and destroy on the same issue. They need to be able to play at their tempo, and if they can't get on their tempo, it looks awful on the map. And their communication this weekend was some of the worst that I have seen from this team in a long time. So they got a lot they got to do. They got to lock in. I'm putting them in Sunday regulars right now because Dallas is coming up, and these guys normally make grand finals or win their own event. If not, we're going to have a very awkward convo about these guys, but I'm thinking they're going to rebound. They have an immediate first match against Atlanta FaZe this weekend, so I'm excited next weekend. I'm excited for that. In Minnesota that first weekend. Then we have one match the following weekend, Carolina Royal Ravens, minor tournament. Miami and Toronto should be an interesting fourth week, and then Thieves and LAG. So they should make winners bracket. It's a pretty easy schedule, but these guys got to figure out how to be a bit more consistent. The hard point was not great this weekend. The S&D was iffy. They're still a good control team, but I'm really concerned about that first game mode. Hopefully this weekend was just an aberration. They were jet lagged or some other BS that they got to work on. By the way, I'm not saying jet lag is an excuse. That's what happened, because I think it's actually the opposite. I think as a professional player, you should never be able to, or you should never be getting jet lag when you're traveling. You should know how to handle that. But they look like they didn't want to be there. They better look like they want to be at the Dallas event, or I think this fan base is going to very quickly turn on this team. So a lot of pressure on them now over the next 6 weeks. And then when we get to the top 2 teams, your grand finalists played one of the best grand finals I've ever seen. And we're going to start with LA Thieves. And I have to give a lot of respect to these guys because when they played their last match of the online qualifier against Boston and lost in game 5, I was really concerned about this team going into this event. But they looked great against everybody other than Atlanta FaZe. They only lost one map to Carolina, Miami, and Miami again. And against FaZe, their both series went the distance, basically. I think these guys got a big event out of Dylan Envoy. He was making plays. I think Hydra's still trying to find his way. And once he does, they're going to be a very tough out. S&D is really the focal point. That's why they lost to FaZe. Their searches were, not great. Somehow they get in a situation where they plant bomb on the wrong side and decide to pinch and wrap around, and it results in them being unable to shoot the other team off of defusing the bomb. It didn't happen once in these 2 series. It happened like 4 times. So something they got to work on. They still got to find Paco comfortable in S&D because around 11 threat they ran in game 7 was some of the worst I've ever seen. But I think you can't be super unhappy for Thieves. Your team just formed and you got second at the first event and lost in the last round of a search. You take that as far as losses go. Upcoming matches, pretty easy schedule for the guys. Carolina and Vegas first weekend. Toronto. So maybe that front end to probably go 2-1. Vancouver and Boston winnable. OpTic and Minnesota. Like these guys will get 5-6 wins at minimum and will be a top seed going into the Dallas event. And then finally, let's talk about Atlanta FaZe, your champions of Major 1. And what a run for these guys. They're currently, I think, on a 12 win streak. A lot of people point to this to the 1v4 against Miami. I really think it was losing 0-3 to Carolina was a turning point. Since then, they've been cruising. You know, maybe that Vegas match was a little sketchy on the control part, but the other 3 maps were not. Like, I think that was a turning point because since then, they started to look like a different team. I think they were kind of trolling Respawns a little bit against Thieves. I feel like FaZe probably should have won that grand final a little bit cleaner, but they rallied in the winners final down 0-2 to reverse sweep Thieves. I thought that was kind of tippable. And this is the type of finals that FaZe like of last year and the year before would have lost to Thieves. And instead this year, I think they really are in a different mental state and they clutched up. So they played B- COD, B+ COD, and got away with it on Sunday. And that's because all 4 of these guys locked in. Cell is at a different level than he was in the beginning of the year. Draza made an insane play 4-4 in that last map. And Abizi and Simp are doing their thing in virtually every game mode all weekend. We'll see. I mean, I think these guys could be a candidate in Dallas to maybe not make it to the final. We'll see. They still have some things they got to work on. But they're in cruise control. And their schedule to split is pretty easy. Vancouver and OpTic, that first weekend, should go at least 1-1. Miami after that, the minor tournament, which will be the top seed. Minnesota and Boston, and then LAG Cloud9. That's 6 wins, basically. 5-6 wins in there. They'll be a top seed for Major 2 in Dallas. Will they be able to go back-to-back and theoretically 3-peat on events? Technically 5 if somehow they win the minor and this one, if we're counting 2 online tournaments. But whatever. These guys are in flow right now. You're back-to-back LAN winners as far as Call of Duty competition. Can they go for a 3-peat? We'll see. I don't think so, but they're joining Thieves top of the class. So yeah, those are my tier list thoughts. We're going to be covering a lot of roster mania and map pool news and other news this week, so make sure you tune in for that. Let me know in the comments what you think of the video. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and as always, guys, we'll see you on the next one.